Hey guys, I'm going to give my first impressions of the VKB Gunfighter and MCG Pro Gunfighter's Revision B model. Received it on Wednesday the 27th, and I've spent the last day or two getting it set up and testing it and flying it around and getting used to it. And I think now I'm qualified to give my first impressions since I've flown a significantly less amount of hours than I have spent calibrating it and getting it set up, because this is not an easy joystick to use if you are not used to opening up your base and changing out springs and cams with needle nose pliers. But otherwise, this is a fantastic joystick. That's what I'm going to say off the bat here. So I'm going to start from the top and work my way down, and I'm going to try and keep this a little shorter. I'm not going to go into as much depth as I would with a full review. But I've done a few other takes of this, and I spent 40 minutes just talking about every aspect, and that's not going to work for first impressions. But I'm just going to go on the surface here and just give a general overview, I guess, and what I like and what I don't like initially. So when I put my hand on the joystick, I feel excellent ergonomics here. A feature on this joystick is that there's a thumb rest in between the CMS hat and the upper body of it, and this is really comfortable because not only does your thumb not rest on the CMS hat and accidentally click something, but it also doesn't have to spend its time either being craned here or here. It's just a really excellent addition, and my thumb already feels better from the Warthog. Now what my hand rests on is this adjustable hand rest. It has 4 positions. This is the 3rd position. 4th position is a little bit higher and goes all the way down if you have big or small hands. And because of that, they moved the nose wheel or the pinky button to below the CMS hat here, and that works perfectly fine. It's your finger wraps around it perfectly, and I tend to keep it off it because sometimes I get a little too excited and I squeeze it and accidentally press it. And I have that bound to drop fuel tanks in my MiGs, so I don't really want that to happen accidentally. So moving up here, there are 3 buttons and 2 analog mini sticks. This one is a little more special, but this one's just a regular Xbox mini stick, like this guy right here. These 2 work excellently. I especially like this one because of its concave hat, and it just feels really nice to slew. And I've already seen a performance increase from using my Warthog throttle's little nub. I don't know why they did that. It was a terrible idea, and I hate them forever for it. There are 3 buttons here and a hat above the index finger in place of the master mode select on the Warthog. These buttons feel really nice. You don't have to press them in at all. They hit on the surface. Something weird about these ones is that they're a lot flatter than this, and they don't stick out. Instead, they're like little flat plates that you press in, and I mean, they feel really nice, but when you can hit them down and they'll still press and register as a button. And that's really weird because sometimes when you do that, you don't notice when you either hit it or released it. And I don't know why these are flat, but it doesn't really matter to me. They feel nice anyways. I like pressing really nice buttons. There are 3 4-way hats. I forgot to mention this is a 5-way hat with push-in. These are all 5-way hats, but they are 4-way with a Z-axis push here. Now this one, this little hat here, I think is in place of the TMS or DMS. The up, down, left, and right actions feel really nice, but this push is kind of weird. It's sticky, and if you don't press it correctly, you don't really know if you've either pressed it or let up on it. And I'm not entirely sure if that's just my model or if I need to change it or something. I don't know. This CMS hat here feels excellent. It much different from this one. It's really crisp, and you can definitely get good force when you're pressing down on it, and it doesn't accidentally click forward or something. You dispense all your flares at once instead of turning on your jammer. This hat above the index finger in place of master mode has a push-in as well. These all actuate really nicely. Push-in does as well. Something that I've noticed when I have a higher palm rest setting is that my finger rests at it like an angle here, and this is already angled, but I don't think it's angled enough, because when I try to press it in, I accidentally hit down or up, and it's not. I probably shouldn't be using it for sensitive sensors, but I lost 2 hats to slew hats here, so it's kind of hard to manage all that, especially when you're flying the A10. But these feel really nice, so I'm not mad about that. So this hat's a little special. By default, if you press it down for 2 seconds, by default it is, if you look here, a little trimmer hat. It does not return to center like this one does. Instead, it stays where you put it. And what the VKB guys on the forum told me is that this is supposed to be used for a trimmer hat, and you're supposed to bind a trim axis to it, and you are able to trim it. And one press in, not holding it down, will reset the trim. Now, something really cool, is that you hold it down for 0.3 seconds. If you just press it in, resets it even when it's not on the thing. See what I mean? Now it operates as a POV hat. So this is really useful, because not only do you have an axis for this analog mini stick, but when you press it in, it will change it to a button, or a POV hat that's recognized as a button. And if you do not have a trim axis available in your game or DCS module, it's super useful, so you don't just completely lose function of a hat. I really have to applaud VKB, because this is super fascinating, and I really enjoy this feature. So moving to the back of the joystick here, the most prominent feature is this analog brake lever that Russian aircraft used for braking. I don't know why they haven't used nose wheel steering, but you know, the Russians. There's also a flip-up trigger, and there is a 2-stage trigger behind that. It's really nice. Now this flip-up trigger, I don't know what position to move here. This flip-up trigger is super satisfying. Flip-up has a nice action, gives a nice thump, then flipping it down and pressing it in is really nice. Now this trigger is, when you press it in, it's kind of mushy. You can kind of hear it as well. But I have no problem with it, because I like how it feels, but some other people have remarked that they don't like how mushy it is. But if you do not like a mushy trigger, there's this 2-way that has a nice action to it on both stages. Now this is a little bit lighter than the Warthogs, and the second detent presses about halfway, so there's not as much travel. And it may not be as satisfying for A10 gun runs, but it definitely suits my purposes. Now for the brake lever, it's a brake lever. There's really not much to talk about. You can change it through the help of all my tabs here. You can change it to press a button so you don't lose the pinky paddle switch like on the Warthog or X56 or 55 or whatever. This is really nice because not only can you fly Russian or World War II aircraft with differential, or not differential, with just brake levers to steer, but you can just use it normally, and it just acts as a really nice feeling pinky paddle. And the action of this is kind of light, but it's also has some heft to it. Like, you're not gonna accidentally, I mean, you can hear how loud that is when it moves back. The spring's pretty strong, but it's not too strong where you're straining your hand. I really like it. Now if I sit down here, just get in my chair, I put my hand here and I start moving it around, it feels a lot different from the Warthog. Now, I changed the default settings. Well, you know, before I can do that, I'm going to move over to this box. This is my old Warthog there, used for 3 years. This is the box. The only things that have been removed are the USB box connector, that this orange thing here that stores calibration and firmware settings, and also connects to rudder pedals with this port. Goes 4-pin, 4-pin, then out comes the USB. Pretty cool. And when you calibrate, this will start blinking, and I think that's really cool. I like the visual feedback, knowing that my joystick is plugged in. But anyways, the only things that have been removed are the base that's sitting here, and the, what the hell is this? Oh, that's just another bag. And the grip and the box and this thing that just sits in here. Now, this bag is interesting because it contains 2 Allen keys right there, and it also contains, oops, shit, I probably should have dropped that. It also contains 2 different cams and 4 different springs. You can see 10, 40, 20, and there should be 30 somewhere, but I'm not going to look for it. So these springs are different tensions, and these cams, I think, yeah, so these 30 cams are for both axes, and they add a center detent. The default cams and the default springs that come installed provide no center detent, and they are very light. And I didn't like that when I first got it, because the lack of a center detent means that whenever you put your hand on the joystick, it will just move it around slightly, and when you're flying an aircraft, you don't want it to be jittering around and crash into the guy you're formation flying with. And especially when you start slewing, it still does that a little bit, but there's a little bit less movement in the center because I added slightly stronger springs. By default, it comes installed with 20 string springs, and I moved them up to 30 strength, and the max is 40 strength, and also comes with 10 strength. And I didn't add a center detent because the spring was sufficient enough, but I might add the center detent, but I also really hate the Warthog for its center detent, since it just takes so much effort, and you can even hear that. There's no audible click when you're moving center to center here. It's all cams, no gimbal. Oh, well, sorry. It's all cams, no weird plastic gimbal thing that degrades a lot. There's a slight bump when crossing over the center, but that's just the little center of these cams here. The joystick moves on these little rollers, and rolls along the cams. And a really nice feature of these cams is that when you pull back and forward and go to the edges, it gets harder and harder to move it, and you can really feel how much strength you're, or how much input you're pulling in. And with other joysticks that don't use this system, it's the same force back and forth. But with this, you really know now when you're about to pull a 9G maneuver that rips your wings off. And I really like this feature, and I haven't flown a World War II sim with this yet. I'm mostly a DCS player, but I have a feeling this is really going to up my turning game, because I already am a really bad pilot, and I would like to not admit, but I rip my wings off more than I would like to admit. Now, something to know is that they kind of rushed the pre-orders out of production here, and the quick installation guide is for the Revision A Gunfighter with the KG-12 grip. And this comes with bad information, so check this out. Use the thing on the forums, because a few people have asked about it and have almost broken their dry clutches and pretty much everything by over tightening them, because the Revision A Gunfighter is a lot different. It has different mechanisms. They add a lot of stuff in the Revision B Gunfighter that makes your life easier, but this has bad information. Don't use it. So I think that covers pretty much everything I wanted to say. I might make a more in-depth review, but this is just my first impressions after a few days of honing and flying with it, and my overall consensus as of now is, oh my god, I can't get enough of this joystick. I feel like I'm flying, and I never want to take my hand off of this again. Well, I think that's pretty much everything. See you guys.